Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Constant Taylor, and welcome to the show. Today we have a very special guest, and you guys are in for a treat. Our special guest today is Davida Shensky. Davida has been speaking professionally for 30 years. The content that she primarily speaks on is career coaching, mental health, psychology, and she's also working on a program to help people with disabilities. Davida speaks primarily nationally and is based out of Atlanta. Davida has written a book that's coming out soon called Overcoming Obstacles. No one stands in the line to become disabled. Davida, that's quite a bio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm glad to be here.
We are glad to have you, Davida. Let's kick off the show by asking you if you can tell the listeners exactly what your business is and how you help people.
Okay, the name of my company is Career Performance Institute. And why career performance? Because as you can see in the job market, it has totally changed since the new century. More and more companies are hiring people to work from home. When the government talks about employment and the lack of employment, what they don't realize is that it's cheaper for a company to start up, set up a website, and hire people as affiliates and do word-of-mouth advertising. This way, you find more and more people working from home, and it also makes it more of an equal workplace because for so many years, you had people with disabilities that were basically barred from the job market simply because there were no laws guaranteeing them their rights. It wasn't until 1977 that they passed the law to guarantee people with disabilities the right to an education. And it wasn't until 1990 that the Americans with Disabilities Act became law, which guaranteed people with disabilities the opportunity to employment, because for the first time, if you felt that you were being discriminated against, then you had an option by going to the EEOC to file discrimination lawsuits against companies.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Do you primarily work directly with people with disabilities, or do you work with third-party organizations that help people with disabilities, or is there a combination of both?
What I do is I've worked with agencies that serve people with disabilities where I've gone in and trained them on self-advocacy, but primarily as a career coach because of my limited mobility. I do more of the using the Skype, the webinars, and dealing with people that are being displaced in the job market simply because if you remember in the late 90s, early 2000, you found that a lot of corporations, what they were doing was cutting the job market because they had 2 or 3 people doing the same job. So what they were looking to do was that they offered buyout packages. And why buyout packages? Because prior to the baby boomers, you found that whenever anyone went to work for the corporation, it was an unwritten rule that they had a contract of a job for life. That's why AT&T, IBM, and many of those big corporations offered big buyout packages so they could reduce a lot of their workforce. And that was right about the same time as the Y2K era, when you had a lot of people going out and offering their services to go and help people with their computers so they wouldn't crash at the turn of the century. It was also the period of the dot-com era when everything was inflated. And so a lot of those companies went out. But this time, as a lot of the dot-com era, the companies are getting started, what is happening is that what they're doing is offering positions as affiliate programs or distributorships because it's easier for them to put more money into the product and the development and paying better commissions to the consumer than going through the middleman or selling their products through the retail stores.
Okay, excellent. How did you get started in doing what you're doing now, and what is your original professional experience and background? What did you start out in, and how did you make the transition into what you're doing today?
Okay, when I first entered the workforce in 1980, I was living in New York, and I went to work for the Department of Social Services doing welfare recertification. And it was really not anything that was specifically tied to my background. And because I was born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, what I did was I went on the merit system and got a job with the Lowndes Valdosta Development Center. And the first 6 months is a probationary period. But what I found was while I was doing that job, it was more of a social work position and not a counseling position, because what I did was I represented the clients to make sure that they got the services they needed to meet their needs. And when the supervisor came to me, or the director of that particular program came to me, when the probationary period was up, she basically said to me, either you resign or you're going to be fired. And I didn't realize at the time that this is something that she had done with 3 or 4 people that held that position before I did. So this was just a common practice for her. And then I found that I was not able to get back on with the state in a counseling position. Therefore, when I looked at my education, I looked at my training, I looked at my experience, and the fact that, as you can tell, I have a very good speaking voice.
Yes.
That first I looked at the fact that I was trained in psychodrama and I was trained in transactional analysis, and I wanted to do group therapy sessions. But I found that because I did not have the master's or the PhD, that was much more difficult. So then it migrated into more of training and development, becoming part of a company called Performax Personal Dynamics Institute, which eventually merged and were bought out by Carlson Companies and became known as their learning division, and that has since split away and become known as Inscape Publishing. But what it is assessment profiles and training programs that help people with communication skills, understanding their behavioral patterns and how they react in different situations, how to reduce stress, how to work in a diverse environment. And I guess the best thing to say is you have someone that's a dominant personality or a high D, that they look at their environment and they think they can control it, and they're very outgoing. You've got the influencing behavior pattern that's very verbal, gets along with people, makes friends easily. And now these are the 4 pure. And then you've got the steadiness personality, and they literally do everything by the book. And the 4th one is the conscientious personality, and this is the person that questions everything, and they have to know all details. The thing is, this is part of all of us, the D, I, S, and C, but you have some of these that are your strengths and some of these that are your weaknesses. And if you understand what your strengths are, then that's where you can succeed the most. And it's also a matter of, if you're in a selling position and you are dealing with someone that likes detail, but you don't like to give detail, if you learn to read people, then it makes it easier for you to understand how to close that person.
Mm-hmm. So do you take the assessments? How do you utilize the assessments? Do you utilize the assessments with the agencies or to show them how to utilize the assessments, or are you using them with the actual direct interface with the workers?
What I do is contract with companies to come in and show them how to use the assessment profiles, and then they become a client of mine that purchases the profiles, and their HR department does the training themselves. Or also, if I'm working with a specific client on coaching them on how to start a business, it's important that they understand what their behavior pattern is, because when you work as a team and you have different people that have strengths in different areas, when you all work together to go to that final goal, then it works better if you're not in conflict with each other.
Okay, that makes sense. So could you tell me and the listeners of taking a business case where you had a client that had a need and how you were able to solve that need, and what were the positive results of that?
Okay, what happens is, especially today, you don't have companies that train employees the way they used to. Mm-hmm. That sometimes it's often up to the employee or the potential employee to learn themselves and take webinars or individual or group coaching so that they can better learn how to utilize those skills. Because what's happening is that you're finding more and more companies cutting their overhead and maybe having a small force that works in an office and having more and more people work from home. You noticed that back a few years ago when the gas prices ran up so high that what happened was even the government said, stay home. We will redirect all the calls to you, because today what a company will do is they will give the employee a computer with the software installed, the phone, you hook it up to the internet, you come in, you get into the mainframe of our computer, and then what we do is we redirect all the calls to you so that you work with the client from home. It's just a matter of people needing to understand how to manage their time better, how to find a place that they can set up as an office in the home and tell their family when the door is closed, don't disturb me because I'm working. Plus what it does is it allows flexible time so that the individual can tell the company what days they need off, if they've got to take care of their children, go to the doctors, whatever, and what times they're available. But the company does dictate, in essence, that if you want to work from home, you got to be on your computer from this time to this time. You get this break, and then you got to come back. So it's very structured, but it also allows, whether it's a mother or a father, to have that time to choose what they need to do. So the technology also has influenced the job market. And in my case, because I have a disability, it makes it much easier for me as an individual to build a business.
Okay, excellent. Now, in the last 60 seconds that we have here, can you please tell the people how can they learn more about you? And if they'd like to speak with you, how can they do that to learn more about the services that you provide?
Okay, they can come to my website, blogtalkradio.com/Career Performance Institute, and they can listen to my show that's called Live Without Limits, where I talk about different business issues that people have in the workplace, and also what opportunities are out there for someone who wants to work from home. Because even the gaming industry today has gone on to use platforms and to market their products through affiliates and offer them a share of the profits made through their advertising. And also, they can go to my website, which is the #1personalcareercoach.com, and they can sign up for both individual and group coaching.
Okay, excellent. Well, Davida, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was very informative information that you shared with our listeners.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.